So business credit cards are like a credit card cheat code that entrepreneurs and business owners have discovered that allows them to earn extra tens of thousands of dollars worth of free credit card points or cash back. But these credit cards are also one of the most misunderstood and underestimated parts of the entire credit card game, because you don't need this huge corporation with hundreds of employees to qualify. The truth is, the average business credit card is really designed for small business owners and regular people. Now, before you click away and say that you don't qualify for these cards, I want you to hear me out, because one of the main takeaways that I want you to get from this video is that almost anything can be considered a business. So whether you're a freelance photographer, an Uber driver, a seller on eBay or Etsy, a content creator, or many other things, if you're offering some sort of a service, big or small, then you qualify for business credit cards. So in this video, I want to give you all a free guide to business cards as someone that's been taking advantage of them for the past 2 years. So I'll go over everything you need to know and answer all the important common questions that people have, like, can I put personal expenses on a business card, or do I need an LLC or corporation to apply? And then I'm also going to lay out the 5 main reasons why I think people should get business credit cards. Okay, now to start off here, let's talk about the most common business there is that many people are running without even realizing it, that qualifies them for business cards, and that would be a sole proprietorship that I'll refer to as a sole prop. Now, a sole prop is just you doing business under your own name. So if you're selling things online, or you've provided a service in any form that you were paid for, or you're trying to get a profit from, but you didn't take any formal steps to set up a business structure like an LLC, well then by default, you're just considered a sole prop, and you're responsible for any profits, losses, or debts from your business. So again, common examples could be you playing part-time as a musician at a local bar, flipping Air Jordans or other sneakers like I used to do, tutoring students, doing website development or video editing, but basically the list is very long. Again, the definition of a business is very broad, so if you do anything in your free time where you're trying to make money, or even if you're sort of in the early stages of doing research to start a business of any size, you still technically can call yourself a business as a sole proprietorship without ever becoming an LLC or a corporation. Now, sometimes it does make sense to create a separate business entity, but many small sole props out there might only be doing a few $1,000s in sales per year, so you definitely do not always need that separate entity if you're keeping things pretty small. And in many cases, a few $1,000s in revenue per year is actually a good starting amount to qualify you for business credit cards. You also might want to have maybe a year or 2 of business experience to put on your application to increase approval odds. But again, if you've already been starting up your business and doing things like buying equipment or doing research or whatever else you might be doing, that's still technically business history as long as it's within reason, so always make sure you're being honest. Now, once you confirm that you've got a business that qualifies for business cards, there's a few things to know about why these credit cards can be so useful. So the first thing is that in most cases, business credit card activity does not report to your personal credit report. So for example, if you got approved for a business credit card with a $10,000 limit, and then you bought $5,000 of inventory with that card, that $5,000 balance would not get reported to your personal credit report. Now, if you'd use one of your personal credit cards with a similar $10,000 limit and a $5,000 balance did get reported, that's a 50% credit utilization that is well above the 10% utilization that I like to recommend, so your credit score would likely drop a bit. Also, you probably need to give your business some time to begin selling that inventory to bring in revenue and then pay down that $5,000 balance. So if you continue with the cycle of buying inventory on personal credit cards as you maintain high utilization, your personal credit score is likely going to suffer, which we don't want. So having the right business credit card would keep that balance off your personal credit report and then help you to manage your cash flow in a much smarter way. Now, having business credit card activity stay off your personal credit report is going to vary by issuer. So for example, issuers like Chase and American Express are typically only going to report business credit card activity to consumer credit bureaus if you're either behind on payments or not in good standing for a certain amount of time. But then an issuer like Capital One is going to report business credit card activity at all times on your personal credit. So just always do your research before you decide what card to apply for, because this is often an important thing that gets overlooked a lot. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to give you some recommendations of what business credit cards to apply for or consider getting. And I'm also going to talk about a few more really important benefits of business cards. But first here, I figured the best way to learn about how to apply for them is to look at a real application as an example. So let's go through an application just as a sole prop versus maybe applying as an LLC like I did. And then I'll also talk about some of the differences between using a social security number versus an employer identification number in your application. So this page here is for the Chase Inc. Business Unlimited, which is one of my favorite simple business credit cards that I'll leave a link to down below if you want to learn more. But here you can see that we have 2 main sections for this application, one for personal info and then one for business info at the bottom. And this is a good time to tell you another really important takeaway from this video, which is the fact that business credit card issuers for many types of small small business credit cards, they're really interested in using your personal credit history and your credit score to approve you for these business cards. Now, you still want to put down the right information in the business section that we'll talk about in a minute here, but for many business credit cards like this, you're going to be giving a personal guarantee anyway, no matter what business structure you have with a sole prop or an LLC or whatever. So basically that means you can't just buy something with this card and then run off thinking you could just leave that debt and abandon your business and not have to pay it back. You're still gonna have to pay back whatever you're using this card for if your business can. And obviously, like I said, if you do start missing payments, then any issuer is going to start reporting that to personal consumer credit bureaus, which will drop your score anyway. So the issuer wants to see that you have a good personal credit score without any bad marks like missed payments or anything weird like that. And for most people, I'd recommend having a credit score that's somewhere at least above 700 before thinking about applying for any business cards. And there are options out there if your score is below 700, but in general, the best business credit cards with good sign-up bonuses, features, and benefits that are really worth your time are gonna require a good score. So I would focus on increasing your personal credit score first if you need to. And I've got another video that I'll leave down below that breaks down exactly how to do that. But anyway, back to the Chase Inc. Unlimited application. So first, under the personal info section, you're just gonna choose owner, and then we're gonna put our first and last name along with our birthday and our mother's maiden name. For tax ID type, we're gonna leave that with social security number and then just enter in our SSN right next to that. Then next we'll have to put in our address. So I'm just gonna put the address of my apartment, but not really. And then we can enter in our email and our phone number as well. But then at the bottom here, we have our total gross annual income, where you should be putting in your combined annual income of not just your salary, but also any other income which might be coming from your business. And again, since Chase is gonna be looking at your personal information to see if you're a good fit to get approved for business cards that you're gonna personally guarantee, this income just shows that you're gonna be able to pay back whatever you're putting on this card. Now, after that, we get into the business info, which should be similar enough with any other issuers out there compared to what Chase has here on their application. So I'm gonna fill this out like I'm applying as a sole prop, but then I'll also show you what I put on my own business credit card applications with my LLC that I have. So as a sole prop, for the legal business structure, we would just select sole proprietorship. And when I selected this, Chase actually auto-filled this for my business legal name with my own name. And if we click here on this little information icon, we can see that it says in most cases, a sole proprietorship's legal name is its owner's personal legal name. So because Chase auto-filled that and then gives this little explanation, hopefully that gives you a little bit more confidence in applying in this type of way, because obviously Chase realizes this is pretty common. Then I just say to put your name as the desired business name on this card as well. And then to keep things simple, we'll check no where it asks if our business uses another name. Now under that is where people get confused and they get tripped up with the tax ID type. So by default, it says employer identification number, EIN, but if we're applying as a sole prop, then what we can do in most cases is just change that to social security number and then enter in our SSN instead. And EIN is basically just like a social security number, but for your business. And if it's just you doing a small business and you don't have any employees or any other complicated stuff like that, then you probably don't need an EIN as a sole prop. And you could read more about this online, but many people apply for business credit cards just by using their SSN and it works just fine. Then we'll just check yes that the business address is the same as our personal address, which is absolutely fine as well. And you don't need a separate office just for your business or anything like that. And then we can enter in the number of employees and our business phone number as well, which can also be the same as our personal phone number. Now you can see here that I put 0 for the number of employees because Chase actually says to enter 0 if you're the only employee, which is going to be the case for many sole props. But I will say that in the past with Chase and with other issuers for other business credit cards as well, where I'm the only employee, I've put 1 in the application, and I know other people do that too. So really, I think either 0 or 1 in this field works because it gets the same message across. You basically just don't want to lie and say you've got 10 employees working under you or something like that, especially when you're only doing a few $1,000s in annual revenue, because obviously that doesn't really make sense. After that, we're going to put our business established month and year. And for this, again, we don't want to lie. You can think back to when you really started up your business with maybe doing research or buying equipment or other stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be the exact date that you were profitable from, because most businesses are not going to be profitable from the start anyway. Next to that, we're also going to put the annual revenue, or what we think we're going to be making per year on average with this business. And generally it's good to maybe expect a few $1,000s, so maybe 5 or 10,000. But again, you want to be honest here as well, so that if any questions ever come up from Chase or any other issuer, you can basically easily explain what your reasoning was for putting a certain annual revenue on that application. Now under that, we have business category, type, and subtype. And for this, we just want to try to match our industry as best as we can. So I found something here that would closely resemble my YouTube and social media business under the information category. Then you could put in your estimated monthly spending, which could maybe be a few $100s or whatever works for your business. Just make a good guess. And then we do not need any employee cards. So we're just going to scroll to the bottom here and then check that we agree and then click submit. Now, maybe if you want to take your business just a little bit more seriously, LLC, then you could form an LLC, which I think is a good thing to do to sort of legitimize your business now for the future as you grow it. And that's pretty much what I did. So I started preparing my YouTube business in the fall of 2020 and then uploaded my first video in January 2021. But I did that all as a sole prop before I even had any revenue. So once I started making maybe a couple $100s per month in late summer 2021, that's when I formed an LLC and got an EIN. That way I could apply for business cards and open business bank accounts. Now there's plenty of services out there that can help you to do that, or you can even do it on your own. But after you form an LLC, then you might also want to add an EIN, which is super easy and quick to do just by searching for that on Google or by going to the IRS website. So back to the application, your personal info is basically going to stay the same, but then under business info, we're going to change sole prop to limited liability company or LLC. And then from there, we're going to change the business legal name and the name on our card to the LLC, which can be whatever here for this example. Then we'll just change the SSN to an EIN and enter in whatever employer identification number we were assigned from the IRS. And finally, we can scroll down to the bottom where a new field popped up that's asking us to say the percentage of ownership we have in this LLC. So I'm going to say it's 100% here. And then we just scroll down some more and check the agree box and then click submit. All right, so now that we've walked through some application examples, let's go ahead and expand on a few really important things we've touched on so far by talking about what I would say are the 5 main reasons to get business credit cards. And then we're going to answer 3 common questions that I see people ask the most, so that way you can go into the whole process of getting business credit cards as confidently as possible. Okay, so quickly going through 5 reasons to get business cards. Number 1 is going to be something that I mentioned earlier, which is the fact that business credit card activity does not report to your personal credit in many cases. Now, I also said that it varies depending on the issuer and depending on if you're making all your payments on time. So from what I know, Capital One reports business activity to personal credit almost always, but then Chase and American Express only is going to report that business activity if you start missing payments after a certain number of days. Also, when you apply, because these issuers are looking mostly at your personal credit report in order to approve you because of that personal guarantee, when you apply, there's still a good chance you're going to get hit with a hard inquiry on your personal credit report that's going to drop your score by a few points in the short term for a few months, and then that stays on your report for around 2 years. Now, hard inquiries are nothing to be afraid of because their effect quickly goes away and your score quickly returns back to where it was after a few months have passed. And sometimes if you're already a customer with personal credit cards with a certain issuer, they might not run a hard inquiry, but either way, it's just something to be aware of. The second main reason to get business credit cards is because of the increased rewards potential, mainly from things like higher sign-up bonuses than what you might find on personal credit cards. You're also going to be able to earn points, miles, and cash back in many business-focused categories, which can be really good if you have a business that actually requires you to spend a lot of money on expenses, like maybe advertising or inventory, in order to make sales and generate revenue. But one thing to note here is that because a lot of these categories, as well as the features and benefits, are business focused, I found that sometimes it might be harder to justify business credit cards with annual fees. So what I suggest here is to start with a no annual fee business card, which I'm going to give a few recommendations for here in just a minute. And then as you grow your business and expand your operations over the next 5 or 10 plus years, then you can slowly start to add in annual fee cards when they make sense. Also, even though higher sign-up bonuses can be a good thing, they usually come with higher minimum spend requirements as well, because obviously many businesses spend a lot of money to operate. So for example, the Chase Inc. Unlimited currently has an offer of $750 of cash back, which is really earned as 75,000 Chase points after spending $6,000 in the first 3 months. So just make sure you plan out your spending and maybe apply for a business card when you know you have a larger expense coming up. The third reason to get business cards is because typically you can get higher credit limits than personal credit cards as well, which can be really useful for your business. And one note here is that the credit limit that you're approved for, especially as a newer business or maybe as your first business credit card, that might not be as high as you want or as high as you need, just because issuers are looking at a ton of different factors when they're approving you. So if your limit is low and your business expenses are making you spend up to that limit every single month, and then you're consistently paying down that balance off in full, then just call up the issuer and tell them that you need a higher limit, and they should be able to help you there. The fourth main reason to get business cards is that it really helps to keep business and personal expenses separate, and I'm going to touch on putting personal expenses on business cards in just a minute here. But for me, when I'm trying to keep track of business expenses, my business credit cards are really what's helping me to simplify things when it comes to doing taxes at the end of the year, because obviously I can write off different business expenses. And reason number 5 is that these cards also help a lot with cash flow. So back to that example from the beginning where I'm buying $5,000 of inventory with a $10,000 credit limit on my business card, that is going to allow me to not have to pay the full $5,000 in cash up front to my supplier. So it gives me time to sell my inventory to then use that cash to pay off my balance. And then there's also 0% APR offers that some businesses take advantage of as well, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. Now, from all the information here in this guide, there's still 3 questions that I want to clear up about business credit cards, with the first question being, can I put personal expenses on my business card? And the answer to that is yes, you can, but they're not intended for that, so you might not want to, even though it is up to you. No, the bank is not going to verify or investigate whether every single one of your purchases that you put on your business card is a real business expense, because they just don't have the time or the resources to do that. And they're also collecting interchange fees from your spending no matter what it's for anyway. And even if they did say something to you or give you a hard time about your spending habits, they would probably just lose you as a customer to one of their competitors. Now, don't confuse this and then think that you can still write off any personal non-business expenses that you put on your business card, because that's going to be tax fraud. So you still need to keep track of what is business and what is personal spending. And technically, if you look at it the other way around, many people use personal credit cards to pay for business expenses when they're just getting started with the business. So that's mixing spending there too, but people still do it. So again, the whole argument of whether you can or should put personal expenses on a business card, in my opinion, really comes down to the convenience of separating business and personal expenses for tax purposes. And you can do what you want, but just know the risks and maybe read up on what other people are saying when they talk about it on Reddit, or just get some other thoughts about it. Another question is, what business card should I get? And like I said, I would definitely recommend starting with no annual fee cards first, and also try to go for cards with good sign-up bonuses with minimum spends you know you can hit, along with other good spending multipliers and features. For me, I started with the Chase Ink Cash and the Chase Ink Unlimited, and then got the Amex Blue Business Plus as well. So all these cards are really great to start with, and I'll leave links down below that are a great way to help support this channel if you want to learn more about any of these business credit cards. Now, a third question is, what should I do if I'm not instantly approved, or if I'm denied for a business card? And for this, you should be ready to call the reconsideration line that many credit card issuers have, where you can basically just provide more information and then explain your situation. And a lot of times that can actually help them to approve you, or at least give you better approval chances in the future by telling you why you were denied. For this, you can either wait to get an email or a letter in the mail explaining their initial denial of your application, and then you can call them to explain things a little bit better to a person on the other end of the line. Or what I did when I was not approved instantly for my first business credit card was I called them after a few days of waiting. Then I asked if I could provide any more info, and they had me send them some business documents, which actually got me approved the next day. But like I said a few times already in this video, I have two main takeaways. The first one is that almost anything can be considered a business, so almost anyone should be able to qualify for business credit cards. And the second takeaway is that business credit cards for small businesses usually require a personal guarantee, so the issuer is going to rely heavily on your personal situation and credit to approve or deny your application. That's why I would say that one of the most crucial things that anyone should do before they ever apply for a business credit card or a regular credit card should be to get a credit score of at least 700, or ideally even higher than that. And that's exactly what you need to watch next in this video over here that explains the 5 easy steps to increase your credit score. So I highly recommend you go ahead and take advantage of that video next to learn how.